Who's killing a GLBT anti-discrimination bill? What's the deal with Hillary's gay interview? Plus, I tell you why I keep stealing your life, 5 minutes at a time. Hey there, internets. My name is Jaffe Grant, and you're watching Flaming Politics here on Logo. Now, last week you all got into a big argument, about Hillary Clinton and about how insulting I am to all of you, which I think is awesome. I'm gonna weigh in, but first, here are the headlines you need to know this week. It looks like ENDA, the gay anti-discrimination bill that passed the House last year, is gonna die a sad, tragic death in the Senate. As reported in the Washington Blade, a number of GOP lawmakers believe Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, that's the Democrat from Nevada, did not want to bring the hate crimes bill to a vote because doing so would help the re-election chances of moderate Republican senators who support the bill. Following the bouncing ball of convoluted logic, Republicans promised to filibuster the bill should it come to the House floor, and the president promises to veto the bill should it come to his desk. Therefore, Democrats say that they're going to hold off on the bill until after the election, when presumably a Democrat will take office. The bill is also controversial in the gay community because it leaves transgender people out of its wording. Hillary Clinton gave an interview to the Philadelphia Gay News last week. In it, she reiterated her support for civil unions. Also, when asked if she would march in a pride parade as president, she said she would if the Secret Service let her. The interview is notable also for what it lacked. There were no questions about her previous support of DOMA, nor was she asked if she renounced or rejected the 1996 radio ads her husband used in southern states, crowing about the successful passage of DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. The ad ended, notably, with the line, "President Clinton has fought for our values and America is better for it." Mark Segal, the publisher of PGN, ran the interview next to a blank space, claiming that Obama refused an interview with him in time for the deadline, and that Obama has not spoken with the local gay media since 2004. On this count, Mark Segal is absolutely right. Barack Obama's last major interview was in October of last year, but that was with The Advocate, a national publication. I'm going to do things a little differently in this episode than I normally do. I'm going to cut short the news to answer some of the comments that have happened on the bulletin boards. Last week, I suggested that Hillary couldn't win, and as I've stated repeatedly since starting Flaming Politics, I'm a little confused as to why the gay community is so enamored of Hillary Clinton. On After Elton, Dave and Psionics, I think that's how you say his name, Psionics? Yeah, got into a monumental discussion about this very thing. My big question for Dave, and for other Hillary supporters, is what have the Clintons done for the gay community? I'm not sure that declaring Pride Month makes up for passing DOMA and for putting Don't Ask, Don't Tell into practice. Which brings me to another comment. Chris on Visible Vote writes, "This guy was fine when he was actually just reporting the news. The attempts at humor and his obviously ill-informed personal asides pretty much weighed the whole thing down, though. The pretty boy from the bars who gets a video log thing can only get you so much mileage. Aside from that, he comes across as so many younger gay men do these days. An annoying stereotype of someone who thinks they know everything about everything, but who clearly hasn't lived a fraction of the time it would take to form those kinds of opinions. Just the news, sweetie. Just the news." Chris, I think you bring up some really good points, and not just because you're right about me being pretty. So, let me answer you in the big story. I want to take a minute and tell you why I'm doing this video column. Consider this my statement of purpose. First off, Chris, as you pointed out, I am a younger gay man, and I've struggled with my relationship with the gay community. I can't say it's a community I'm necessarily all that proud of. Before you get angry, let me explain. As I see it, you can break up the story of the modern gay movement into 4 distinct chapters. The first chapter, of course, are groups like the Mattachine Society and the people who rioted Stonewall, who first announced to the world that gay people existed. Because before that, they didn't. At all. The second chapter of this story is filled with the AIDS epidemic and those who fought to make sure that we would survive. It was literally the gay movement's existential moment. And at the forefront of this was Larry Kramer and ACT UP. Without them, we wouldn't have gotten the AIDS medications to survive. They literally forced the industry to do it. They forced the government to do it by being in their face, by being active. The third chapter of the story is the story of the survivors. Thrilled to be spared from the plague of AIDS, many gay men moved to the cities, got as buff as possible, lived in the mainstream during the day, and partied all night long. The apotheosis of this was the Gay Men's Health Crisis Morning Party, where you had gays raising money to combat AIDS in the very environment where you're most likely to catch it. A giant all-night circuit party filled with drugs and unprotected sex.
Awesome!
And then there's the chapter we live in now. We have more people feeling comfortable about coming out in their sexuality than ever before. We're truly no longer invisible, which is a huge milestone. I personally have experienced a lot of these benefits. I came out when I was 16 years old, and I wasn't even the first person in my high school to come out, or the second person, or the third person.
Maybe the fourth person.
But as me and many of my friends found out, a lot of the Chelsea Queens weren't very much interested in sharing with us the wisdom of their history or making us part of the community. In fact, they're kind of interested in only one thing. This is the part of your comment that really bugs me, Chris. Now, when you say that I'm not old enough to form these kind of opinions, I assume you mean political opinions. And you aren't alone in your attitude that young gay people are pretty boys from the bars and have nothing to contribute other than, looking pretty. And as hard as that might be to believe, it's that attitude, not the year printed on your driver's license, that drives so many younger gay people away from older gay people. And look, this isn't a good thing. My friends and I are figuring out things as we go along, and in the process we're making some of the same mistakes that you did. HIV infection rates are up for gay men, and in my own personal experience, I'd say half to two-thirds of the people I know who are my age are either addicted to something or in recovery for addiction. I am 28 years old. At the same time, I already feel like I'm behind the kids who are just a few years younger than me. Kids now can come out in middle school. Their straight friends don't think it's weird. I wonder what kind of community they're going to be walking into as they get a little bit older. But instead of embracing new ideas, new viewpoints, and new people, the gay community has a nasty habit of rejecting those who don't go along with the standard wisdom. The standard wisdom says things like, if you're gay, you must be a Democrat, because if you're gay and a Republican, obviously you hate yourself. This isn't just intolerant, it's incredibly stupid. The truth is, Democrats have done a decent job of marching in our pride parades, but have done very little to help us out. The fact that some gay people think they can get more traction with the Republicans shouldn't be a cause for a Jacobin riot. Do you honestly think gay Republicans don't want the same basic rights and freedoms that you do? And considering the fact that right now we can't get a simple anti-discrimination bill passed through a democratically controlled Congress, I think the gay community ought to be skeptical. We ought to be skeptical of our Republican leaders and our Democratic leaders. I think it's time for us to say that nice words are great, but actions actually do matter. Now back to the reason why I'm doing this. I hear a lot of complaining about some farmer in Podunk, Iowa who says homophobic things and hates all of us, but very little about the pervasive self-hatred in our own community, or the casual racism, or the fact that it's much easier to be rich and gay than it is to be poor and gay. We do more harm to ourselves than that farmer could ever hope to do. Right before ACT UP started, a group of New York gay men created a program called Silence Equals Death. That's a slogan that cuts both ways. We can't be silent in the predominantly straight world, but we also can't be silent with each other either. Now, I don't mean to say that there aren't people working for the gay community. In fact, there are tons of them. Some of them people my age. I have friends who work for Project Angel Food. The t-shirt I'm wearing is created by my friend Kevin Hausworth, and he runs a website called homosarahoot.com. homosarahoot.com, where you can buy this t-shirt, and the money goes to PFLAG and to other gay organizations. And he didn't do this for any other reason than the fact that he wanted to give back to the community. I think my generation has a lot to offer the gay community, and it bothers me when people say to us basically, well, shut up. Because that silence affects us all, and it robs the community of its vitality, and frankly, of its relevance, and I think we can do better. What I want to do with Flaming Politics, with this show, is to get back to basics, to engage in a conversation, to ask the fundamental questions. Who are we? What do we believe in? How are we going to get there? Visibility is incredibly important, but now that we've got people watching, we've got to show the world, and more importantly, ourselves, what we're made of. This is Jaffe Grant, and you've been watching Flaming Politics. Oh, and don't call me sweetie.